My name is Hannah Cole. I'm 35 years old, and the sentence that finally snapped something in me and didn't happen in a courtroom or in front of a judge or even during one of those movie-style screaming matches in the rain. It started with 38 seconds of sound. 38 seconds that I thought were gone forever. 2 years ago, my daughter died. She was 7, leukemia. I'm not going to walk you through every detail of that because if I do, I'm going to end up on the kitchen floor again, and I've spent enough nights there. Her dad and I split when she was little. We weren't some war story divorce. We were tired, wrong for each other. But we stayed friends. We co-parented. We sat side by side at school plays and parent-teacher conferences. When she got sick, we were both at the hospital every day, drinking burnt coffee and pretending we understood medical charts. When she died, we were both holding her hands. There is one thing I kept from before everything went really bad. A voice recording on my phone, 38 seconds long. It was from a business trip I took, about a month before her body really started to lose the fight. I was in a bland hotel room 3 states away. She was at home, curled up in her favorite pajamas, talking into her dad's phone so he could send me something to listen to before I went to sleep. "Good night, Mommy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Don't let the bedbugs bite." Then the giggles. That high, bright little laugh that made strangers turn their heads in grocery stores. I saved that recording 3 different ways. In my Photos app, in my voice memos, in a hidden folder I thought nobody knew about. I listened to it maybe once a week. More, on the bad days. Never in front of anyone. Never in public. It was mine. It was sacred. It was proof that she was real and here, and not just a dream I made up because my arms felt too empty. 14 months ago, my grief counselor told me that if I ever felt ready, I might consider dating again. Not because romance fixes anything, but because sometimes it helps to remember that life still moves. That's when I met Ethan. He was charming in the way people who like being looked at are charming. Easy smile, expensive cologne, the kind of man who knows exactly how tall he is and how his shirts fit across his shoulders. He worked in marketing, of course he did, and he said all the right things when I told him about my daughter. "I get that you'll always be her mom," he'd said on our 3rd date, fingers wrapping around mine. "Grief doesn't have a timeline. Anyone who really loves you will respect that." I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the way his eyes went slightly distant whenever I mentioned her name. For a while it was good, or good enough that I could pretend. We cooked dinners together in my condo, the place I'd bought after the divorce, the one thing that felt like solid ground under my feet. He stayed over more and more. His shaving cream started living in my bathroom. His shoes lined up at my door. We never had the conversation where he officially moved in. It just sort of happened. His lease was ending. My place was bigger and nicer. We told ourselves it was practical. He told me, "Once I pay off this car repair and some dental work, I'll start pitching in for the mortgage, utilities, all that." Those repairs, that dental work, those emergencies, somehow they never really ended. And at first, he was gentle about my daughter's presence in the apartment. Her pictures on the walls, the stuffed rabbit sitting on the armchair in the corner, its fur worn thin, the baby book on the shelf. But then the comments started. "You mention her a lot," he said one night as we lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "I get it, but sometimes I feel like I'm competing with a ghost." "I'm not asking you to compete," I told him. "She's my kid. She's always here, even when she's not." He sighed. "Maybe at some point we could put away some of the photos. Just for a little while. I feel like I can't make new memories with you because the old ones are everywhere." I should have ended it right then, not because he was asking me to take down a picture, but because of the way his voice curved around the word everywhere, like my daughter was mold creeping up the walls. But I was lonely and tired, and there's a special kind of vulnerability that comes from losing a child, the kind that makes you grateful for anyone who isn't actively running away from your pain. So I nodded, said, "We'll talk about it," and then didn't. He got quieter after that when it came to her, stopped pretending to listen when I talked about a memory, sat through visits to the cemetery with his jaw clenched, checking his phone in the parking lot. Little things that, at the time, I labeled as, maybe he's just uncomfortable, instead of what they really were. Warning signs. Then came the morning everything cracked. I woke up before my alarm, which never happens. The apartment was too quiet. Ethan usually slept like he'd been tranquilized, face buried in my pillow, dead to the world until his phone screamed at him. That day, his side of the bed was empty. I pulled on a hoodie and padded out into the living room. He was on the couch, hunched over, head bent, thumbs moving quickly. My phone was in his hand. "What are you doing?" I asked. He jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Nothing," he said too fast. "Just checking the weather. Your phone was closer." His own phone was sitting right next to him on the coffee table, lit up with notifications. Something cold moved through me, but I swallowed it down. I was running late. I had a meeting. I didn't have the energy to chase whatever this was. "Okay," I said slowly, holding out my hand. "I need it." He hesitated for a fraction of a second, almost not long enough to notice. Then he passed it over and gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I went to work. Long day. Angry emails. Broken spreadsheets. The usual. By the time I got home, my brain felt like somebody had left it in the microwave too long. All I wanted was sweatpants, silence, and maybe 38 seconds of my daughter's laugh. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my bag, and sank onto the couch. Thumbed open my photos. I kept the recording there, in a little album with her name on it. The album was still there, the recording wasn't. For a moment, I thought I'd tapped the wrong thing. I backed out, went into voice memos. Nothing. Searched her name. Nothing. Went to recently deleted. Empty. My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. "Hannah?" Ethan's voice floated in from the kitchen. "You okay?" I stood up and walked in on legs that didn't feel attached to my body. "Did you use my phone today?" I asked. He didn't look up from the skillet he was scrambling eggs in. "No. Why? Are you sure?" Something in my voice must have gotten through because he finally turned around. "Why are you asking me like I stole your identity or something?" "The recording of Lily is gone," I said. My throat closed around her name, but I forced it out. The one of her saying goodnight to me. He was quiet for 1 beat, 2. Then he shrugged. "Oh, yeah, I deleted that." Just like that. Like he was talking about clearing out spam emails. "You what?" The words scraped out of me. "I deleted it," he repeated, like I was being slow. "You listen to that constantly, Hannah. It's not healthy. You need to move on." I stared at him. The world tunneled, his face the only thing in focus. "Constantly?" I whispered. "I listen to it, once a week. Maybe. And you don't even hear it because I make sure you're not around." He rolled his eyes. "Do you hear yourself? It's been 2 years. 2 entire years. You can't live in that moment forever. We're supposed to be building a future together, and you're obsessing over a recording of a dead kid." Dead. Kid. He said it like she was trash on the curb. Something inside me went very, very still. "Get out," I said. He blinked. "What?" "Get out of my apartment." "You're serious?" He laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "Over this? Over a stupid file on your phone? I'm trying to help you." There are moments in your life when you realize exactly who someone is, and it's never a gentle realization. It's a slap. "This is my home," I said quietly. "My name is on the deed. You don't pay rent. You don't pay utilities. You deleted the last living piece of my daughter I had because it was inconvenient for you. Get your stuff. Get out." "It's almost midnight," he snapped. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," I said, and I meant it in a way that scared even me. "You don't live here. Not really. Not anymore." "You're being insane," he said. "There are therapists, support groups." I picked up my phone. "Who are you calling?" he demanded. "The police," I said, "to report a trespasser who refuses to leave my property." For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then he saw in my face that I wasn't bluffing. He grabbed his keys, his wallet, his phone, muttered something under his breath I didn't catch, slammed the door so hard that my elderly neighbor knocked a few minutes later to ask if everything was okay. "I'm fine," I lied. "Everything's fine." After she left, I sat on the couch for an hour, phone in my hand, staring at the empty space where my daughter's voice used to be. Tears came, hot and useless. I thought I might actually throw up. Then a thought slipped through the fog. Cloud backup. I'd turned on autosync months ago and forgotten about it. My hands shook as I opened the app, signed in, and scrolled. There, an older copy of my photo library. My fingers flew, searching, and there it was, her name, that little waveform icon, 38 seconds. I hit play. Her voice filled my headphones, sweet and small and unmistakably hers. "Good night, Mommy. I love you. I miss you. Sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite." The laugh. I folded over myself and sobbed, louder than I had since the funeral. Relief, grief, rage, all twisted together until I couldn't tell which was which. I downloaded the file, saved it in 3 new places, emailed it to myself. For a second, I even thought about printing it out somehow, like a photograph of sound. But under the relief, something else settled in. something cold and sharp and clear. Ethan had looked at the last piece of my daughter I had and decided it was a problem to solve. He hadn't made a mistake. He'd made a choice. A week passed, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could breathe again. I'd gotten the recording back, my daughter's voice safely restored to me, and yet everything still felt off. Like a thread had been pulled loose, and no matter how many times I tried to retie it, the knot never felt the same. Ethan had gone to his friend's place the night I kicked him out. I know this because the next morning his friend called me, straight into it without even a hello. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded, voice shrill. "Why would you throw him out over something like this?" "Excuse me?" I asked, barely able to process the fact that Ethan had passed the story along already. "He's devastated," she continued, her voice softening like she was trying to calm me down. "He's been patient, really patient with you, but you just—" "You're right," I cut her off, standing still in the middle of my kitchen, shaking. "I kicked him out because he deleted the only recording I have of my daughter's voice. So tell me, is that not a good enough reason?" There was a pause on the other end, as though she'd finally registered what I'd said, but I wasn't done yet. "He's been living rent-free in my apartment for 4 months, and while he's been criticizing me for clinging to memories, I didn't see him pitching in to help with rent or expenses. Did he mention that to you, or is this a one-sided story?" The line went dead silent before she spoke again, much more quietly. "Maybe he made a mistake." "No, he didn't make a mistake," I said, feeling the anger rise. "He made a choice, and now he's going to live with the consequences. Goodbye." I hung up, feeling the heat rise in my face, but a part of me also felt a strange sense of calm. I had my daughter's voice back. I had the strength to make hard decisions, even when they hurt. But that wasn't the end of it. It was only just beginning. The next day, when I returned home from work, I noticed something strange. My lock, my deadbolt, had fresh scratches around it. Someone had tried to break in. The familiar pang of dread settled in my stomach, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan wouldn't just let this go. But even after the eviction, I still didn't fully understand what lengths he was capable of. I grabbed my phone and called the building's property manager. I'd been on the condo board for a few years, and I knew exactly what needed to be done. We couldn't leave things like this. If I was going to feel safe, I needed more than just a regular lock. He made arrangements for the security guy to change the locks immediately and install a new deadbolt. They even added a Ring camera for extra security. It wasn't enough to erase the unease that had crept into my home, but it was a start. Later that night, as I sank into my couch, exhausted from the day, I couldn't shake the thought that Ethan was still out there somewhere, fuming, plotting his next move. I wasn't wrong. The Ring camera went off while I was halfway through a glass of wine, my eyes flicking to the screen. There he was. Ethan stood at my door, staring at the camera. Then he knocked, first gently, then harder, as if trying to force his presence into my apartment. "I know you're home," he said, his voice thick with entitlement. "Open up, Hannah. We need to talk." I watched him, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't move. I just stood there, staring at the screen, as he knocked again, this time more forcefully. I wasn't ready for this, but I was done pretending I didn't have the power to stand up for myself. With a deep breath, I got up and went to the door. I unlocked the screen door, leaving the main door still shut between us. Through the small gap, I looked at him. "Did you try to break into my apartment earlier?" His face reddened. "I was getting my things." I shook my head. "You don't have a key. I changed the locks." "You can't do that." His voice was louder now, his frustration obvious. "I live here." "No, you don't," I said firmly. "You've been staying here, but you've never paid rent. You've never contributed to expenses. You're a guest, not a tenant. And now you're trespassing." His eyes narrowed as his mouth twisted into a sneer. "You're garbage, you know that?" His words hit harder than I expected, but I stood tall, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "You can stay as long as you want," I said. "But just remember, this is my home, not yours. You've overplayed your hand. You've tried to erase my daughter, and I'm not going to let you erase me too." I closed the door then, not waiting for him to say another word. I locked it, sat down on the couch, and buried my face in my hands. But I wasn't done yet. I knew this wasn't the end. The next few days were quiet, but something still felt off. I kept checking the camera app obsessively, certain that I was waiting for something. Maybe a confrontation, maybe a worse intrusion. It came sooner than I expected. I came home from work late one night, only to find the door to my apartment slightly ajar. Not broken, just unlocked. My heart stopped. I couldn't believe it. I'd installed the new deadbolt. Only one person had access to the master key, and that was the property manager. I called him, confused, alarmed. "Did you let anyone into my apartment?" "No," he said immediately. "I swear, only I have the key, and I didn't open anything." I walked through my apartment, scanning for signs that someone had been inside. At first glance, nothing was disturbed. Nothing was missing. But then I checked my daughter's memory boxes. There were 3 of them, carefully labeled with her name, with all the things I couldn't let go of. The clothes she wore, her toys, the art she'd made at school, the cards she'd sent me, the little things that mattered most. One of the boxes was empty. Just gone. A cold, icy panic gripped me. I called the police immediately. They filed a report, but there wasn't much they could do without evidence of a break-in. They told me to keep an eye on the apartment, as if I wasn't already doing that. The worst part? I didn't even need to call him. I already knew who had done it. It was Ethan's best friend, and it was time to put the pressure on. Days passed, and the empty box haunted me. It wasn't just that one box, it was everything in it. All the pieces of my daughter's life that I couldn't let go of, tucked away carefully, now gone. I checked every drawer, every corner, every shelf, as though I could find something I missed. I even combed through the apartment like a madwoman, but it was clear, nothing was the same. I called the police again, but deep down, I knew they couldn't help. It was one of those frustrating moments when you know the truth, but nobody can prove it. And the more I searched, the more I realized there was no coming back from this. Ethan had crossed a line, one that I could never unsee. But the breaking point came when I called the building's security and asked about the footage of my door. I had to know who was responsible, and I didn't trust anyone but myself to get to the truth. The footage confirmed what I'd already suspected. His best friend, who had pretended to be an ally, had slipped into my building while my elderly neighbor, who I'd trusted, let her in. She thought she was helping someone locked out, but it was all part of the plan. The worst part? She wasn't just taking what wasn't hers. She was trying to erase my daughter, piece by piece, without anyone noticing. She took the memory box. She took everything that mattered to me, and it was only then that I realized the true depth of what had happened. I took a deep breath, exhaling through clenched teeth as I stared at the footage. She didn't just steal things. She stole my daughter's existence. The next morning, I couldn't just sit back and wait for something to happen. I couldn't let Ethan and his best friend think they could get away with this. It wasn't just about the physical items. It was about the respect they had destroyed, the boundaries they had crossed. So I did what any person with a sense of justice would do. I gathered all the evidence I could find: footage, text messages, pictures, screenshots of social media posts where Ethan had tried to paint me as the villain. His words, her words, all of it. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I went on the offensive. The first step was to contact Ethan directly. I needed him to know that this was no longer a private issue between us. His actions were no longer something I would let him walk away from. I texted him, my fingers typing furiously, barely able to contain my anger. "Return the box of my daughter's things by 6 p.m. today. If you don't, I'll be filing theft charges. You know exactly what I'm talking about." Of course, there was no response. Not that I expected one. Ethan always waited until I reached my limit before he responded, as though testing how far he could push me before I broke. But this time, I was done breaking. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a notification from my social media account. A message from someone I didn't know, a screenshot from a friend of mine. It was Ethan's ex-girlfriend. She had posted something about me, about how I had attacked him, about how I'd thrown him out of my apartment over a stupid recording. She painted herself as the victim, the girl who had been trying to help a grieving man, only to be thrown out for her efforts. It was all lies. And not just lies, deliberate, malicious lies. The post wasn't just a random rant. It was a public attempt to manipulate people into feeling sorry for her, to turn everyone against me. It was part of a bigger smear campaign, one that would spread like wildfire if I let it go unchallenged. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not this time. I commented. Something simple, something true. "You deleted the only recording I had of my daughter's voice. Then you stole her things. You want to talk about helping me grieve? Let's talk about that." I posted screenshots of the text conversations where Ethan had admitted deleting the recording and downplayed its significance. I didn't hold back. The truth needed to be known. I tagged the best friend, and then I added a final line. "Return my daughter's things by 6 p.m. today, or I'll file theft charges." The reaction was immediate. People who didn't know me personally started commenting, and it wasn't pretty. Some people sided with Ethan's ex, some defended me. But the more I posted, the more I made clear that this wasn't just about a recording. It was about something much deeper. It wasn't just my grief that had been manipulated, it was my daughter's memory that had been violated. It wasn't just about what I had lost, it was about what they had tried to erase from my life. The comments quickly turned against Ethan's ex. People began calling her out for what she had done, and for the first time, I saw a shift in the narrative. She couldn't hide anymore. I wasn't going to stay silent while they tried to erase everything my daughter had been. She was a part of me, a part of my history, and no one, not even Ethan, had the right to take that from me. By 6 p.m. that evening, I was standing by the door, watching the Ring camera. My heart raced, but it wasn't fear I felt. It was something stronger. A minute passed, then 2. Suddenly there was a knock. I opened the door to find a box, set gently on the ground. No words, no apologies. But it didn't matter. My daughter's things were back, the box was returned, and that was all that counted. Later that night, I sat on my couch, the box on the coffee table in front of me. The stuffed rabbit inside it smelled faintly of cigarettes, but it was still hers. The drawings were crumpled but intact. The little card she'd made for my birthday in kindergarten was there, the crayon mark still bright against the paper. I couldn't stop myself from smiling, even through the tears. This was mine. No one could take it. No one could erase it. The next day, Ethan texted. His message was simple. "Return my stuff. You can't do this." I didn't respond. He had no right to tell me what I could or couldn't do with the things I had left of my daughter. Instead, I texted his best friend. "If you contact me again, I'll be filing a report for theft and trespassing. Stay away from me and stay away from my home." The next day, I saw something unexpected. The best friend sent me a box of my daughter's things, everything that had been missing. The stuffed rabbit, the drawings, the card, and a note. "Sorry, we didn't mean for it to go this far." It wasn't an apology. It was just more manipulation. But I didn't care. The things that mattered were back, and I would never let them take that from me again. I blocked their numbers, erased them from my life, and moved on. And now, more than ever, I knew I had one thing that no one could take away. My daughter's voice. And no one was ever going to make me feel guilty for keeping it. The aftermath of everything had left me feeling raw, exposed, and yet somehow stronger than I'd ever been. My life felt like it was divided into 2 parts, before Ethan and after. Before, I had been uncertain about my boundaries, scared to confront the truth. After, I realized that no one, not even him, would ever walk over me again. But there was one more step I had to take. I couldn't let this go. Not after everything he'd done, after everything she had done. The restraining order was my final line in the sand. It wasn't easy, going to court. I had to relive every moment of betrayal, seeing their faces again, feeling the bile rise in my throat as I thought about how they'd invaded my space, violated my grief, and erased my daughter's memory. Ethan showed up with his mother and the lawyer. She had on that same tired, smug look she always wore, the one that made it clear she was certain her son could do no wrong. But she was wrong. I stood tall in the courtroom, my shoulders squared, feeling the weight of the truth in my chest. I had the evidence. I had the texts. I had the photos, the social media posts, the security footage, everything that showed Ethan's cruelty, his disregard for me, for my daughter, and for any kind of basic human decency. The lawyer started his spiel, trying to twist the narrative, playing the victim card like they always did. "Your Honor, my client has endured emotional abuse for over a year. She's been struggling with her grief, and while she's tried to heal, the plaintiff, Mr. Cole, has continued to weaponize his grief. He can't move on. He's holding her to impossible standards." I couldn't help myself. I leaned forward, cutting him off. "That's a lie," I said, my voice firm and steady. I wasn't holding anyone to impossible standards. I was simply living my life, and he couldn't handle it. He erased my daughter's memory because it made him uncomfortable. He tried to force me to forget her, to move on as if she was nothing more than a chapter in my past. I turned to look at Ethan. His jaw was clenched, but I wasn't afraid anymore. "You deleted the only recording I had of her voice. You destroyed a piece of me." The judge's eyes flicked between us. He didn't speak for a moment, just took it all in. Then he asked Ethan point blank, "Did you or did you not delete the recording of your ex's daughter from her phone?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. "Yes," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But I thought—" "No," the judge interrupted, voice hard. "You thought you were helping her move on by taking away something irreplaceable. That's not help. That's control." The lawyer stammered, trying to shift focus. "Your Honor, she's obsessed with the past. This recording was unhealthy for her. She needs therapy. The judge didn't even glance at him. Did you or did you not delete this recording, Mr. Cole? I did, Ethan admitted reluctantly, his face burning red. But it wasn't. It was, the judge cut him off. It was destruction. And you didn't just stop there. You tried to erase her daughter from her life completely. I wasn't sure what hurt more, hearing it from someone else or watching him finally own up to his actions. Either way, it didn't matter. It was done. The truth had been spoken. The hearing continued, but by that point, I knew what was coming. The evidence was clear. The judge had seen enough. The decision was simple. You're entitled to move forward with your life, Ms. Cole, the judge said, looking directly at me. And Mr. Cole, you'll be ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from her, her home, and her workplace. No contact. This order will stand for 1 year. It felt like a weight had been lifted. The room fell into a heavy silence, and I took a deep breath, feeling the closure that had eluded me for so long settle over me like a blanket. As the hearing concluded, I saw Ethan's face, a mixture of anger, frustration, and, I think, something deeper. Regret, maybe. But I didn't care. He didn't deserve an ounce of my empathy, not after everything. His mother tried to approach me as we were leaving. The bailiff blocked her, but she didn't back down. You don't know what you've done, she said, voice shaking with rage. You've ruined everything. He was the best thing that ever happened to you. I shook my head, the weight of her words like a bitter taste in my mouth. No, I said firmly. You don't understand what you've done. You've allowed him to erase my daughter, and I won't forgive him for that. Not now, not ever. I turned on my heel, walking out of the courtroom with my head held high. The world outside didn't seem so heavy anymore. I felt lighter, unburdened by the years of guilt, by the haunting memories of Ethan and his manipulations. Over the next few weeks, I made some changes. I changed the locks again, just to be sure. I put my daughter's memory box in a safe place, one where it could never be touched or moved again. I took the rabbit to a professional cleaner. I fixed the torn drawing. I also changed my phone number, deleted every trace of Ethan's existence from my life. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I'm not going to lie and say everything is perfect. The pain is still there. The hole that Ethan tried to leave in me is still present, but it's smaller now, more manageable. And every time I hear my daughter's voice, whenever I play that recording of her, "Good night, Mommy, I love you, I miss you," I'm reminded that I am still her mother, and she is still my daughter. Nothing, not even Ethan, could ever take that from me. As for Ethan, I haven't heard from him. I don't know if he'll try to reach out after the restraining order expires, but I don't worry about it anymore. I'm fine on my own, and I've got my daughter's voice. That's all I need.